We are now live on
We are
Facebook.
live. Awesome. Hello, hello. Okay, so let me hit record here.
Perfect. And Tribe, we are having a little bit of technical difficulties right now, so just bear with us, and we will have Dr. Rashmi Schramm with us in uno momento, and she is going to be, I'm excited to.
Okay, I don't see record on any of the buttons here. It says mute, stop, security.
Oh, I have record on my end. This is actually so weird that you have to share and I have to record. All right, you guys, it's always something. You would think, Marcia, as much as we like work from our laptops, that we would have all of this figured out. Okay, let me record.
Wonderful. There we go.
Comical.
So happy Tuesday, everybody. We're trying to work out all the technical difficulties, but we will soon have this up and rolling. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching with us today. Jackie, take it away.
Yeah, so we have Dr. Rashmi Schramm joining us. We actually met Dr. Rashmi through the Thrive Formula Summit, which is a summit that Dr. Colin Zhu, or the Chef Doc, put on, and it's still going. If you want more information on this incredible online virtual summit, then we'll put the link to the summit.
Okay, I don't know if it's me. I'm frozen or you guys are frozen?
Being, which is like crazy, amazing, powerful. And we don't know her full story, so we can't wait for her to be back on here. Now I'm frozen. This is comical. So between myself and Dr. Rashmi, we're gonna have like frozen internet. But here we go, Dr. Rashmi, you're here. Yay!
Hi, how are you guys? Sorry for that.
It is all good. So I was just introducing you that we met through Dr. Colin Zhu's the Thrive Formula Summit, and we both have different presentations in his summit. And you're like the thing that you like, the area of medicine that you really love is mindfulness and meditation and emotional health and well-being. But before we get into that, Dr. Rashmi, can you kind of tell us about yourself and how you came to practice medicine, and then we'll get into how you found plant-based and this lifestyle. So first of all, Dr. Rashmi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I'm so grateful to have met you guys in the Thrive Summit. So thank you first. So yeah, I am a family practice doctor. I actually grew up in India. So I was born in South India, grew up there until I was 12, and then went to middle school and high school in a very small coal mining town in Virginia, and began to really love medicine as I started to volunteer in a variety of different hospital settings and things like that. And so went straight through college, med school, residency, met my husband during med school, married right after med school, and then right after residency had a couple of kids. And so through some of that journey, really what was happening though, like, you know, the bird's eye view was I had been introduced a little bit to mind-body well-being and meditation as a child in India, particularly by my grandmother, and it just really loved it. It just sort of calls to me. And then of course, like didn't do anything with it for many, many years. And then found, you know, just a wonderful small little meditation tribe in college. And I joke still, but I was basically a closet meditator. You know, that was in the early 1990s, and nobody was talking about meditation or mindfulness. And it was sort of viewed as like, oh, there must be something wrong with you if you have to go meditate kind of thing. And so was a closet meditator even in medical school, and definitely just lost the whole thing during residency. And then I talk about just as I, became a mom with some young kids, really what started to happen for me was just the accumulation of stress. I was working really long hours. My husband was working really long hours. Kids need a lot of time and energy. And so all of that was just taking a toll on me. And I started to have lots and lots of mental turbulence. I suffered from anxiety, lots of bouts of depression for sure. Insomnia was like a chronic thing for me for many, many years. And to a point, then I also began to get physically sick, right? Like that's of course the next thing that begins to happen. And so I had all kinds of digestive issues. I had, I was taking like Benadryl to go to sleep every night. I was having chronic daily migraines. It was not exactly the picture of health, even though I was walking into my clinic every single day, like treating a ton of people. But the thing was, I found that it was pretty much the case for so many of my patients as well. Like none of us were really dealing very well with this chronic daily stress. And I just wasn't tolerating any medications that I had been trying for migraines and insomnia. And so I was like, oh my God, why don't I just try meditating again? That's when I used to feel the best in my life. And so I started to slowly incorporate some of that into my life. And that was about 10 years or so ago, and really stuck with it. First, I started to see a big difference in my migraines. And that was like good enough for me to keep going. And then my sleep got better. And, everything else starts to shift too, right? And so really began to shift into a better nutrition, like, more plant-based, less processed, less fast. And the shift just, was a very, very, very slow shift, but it was a real movement. And it certainly wasn't linear, but it was a huge, huge change for me. And that's really how I fell back in love with mindfulness and meditation. And as I was able to, I started to study it a little bit more and was able to then teach it as a certified teacher. And that's really the shortened version of my love for mindfulness and meditation.
That is beautiful. And I think it's incredible that you grew up and you were introduced to meditation at a very, very young age, and then how you went away from it. And I can relate to this in a different venue. I grew up going to church every Sunday. And then when I got into college, I was too busy, and I was too busy like doing other things. I really kind of got away from the church. But then later on in life, it was like late 30s, that I wanted to go back to something that I knew from a very early age, and like getting more involved in my spirituality. And I find it incredible that you realized that you wanted to have some meditation back in your life, or you wanted to try it again. Like the medications weren't working. So you're like, let me go back to something that was working. But my question for you, because so many people who maybe have heard about meditation, but they're not quite sure how to do it, a lot of times they're like, I'm too busy to meditate. I think it's more acceptable now, but people are like, I'm just so busy, I can't do it. So can you talk us through a little bit how you started to reincorporate it back into your life? Like how long were you meditating, and how long do you meditate now? Like how did that whole process, what did that look like?
Yeah, what a great question. It is one of the most common questions that I get too, Jackie. So that was my biggest problem too. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to add something else on? Like my problem right now is I have too much to do in too little time. And so I just went really, really easily into the thing. So I just started with 5 minutes a day. That's really where I was. And that was good enough. Honestly, very initially, that was totally fine for the first several weeks. And I actually saw some results just from that. And so then I just increased it a little bit. I got myself a meditation teacher, and that made a huge difference for me. And that's what I do now, really. Like there are, I can think of at least 6 different of my clients that I work with now. We started with 2 minutes a day. And we start with 2 minutes a day of breathing exercises, 2 minutes a day of meditation. And almost everybody can give us that. They can at least come to terms with that. And you guys know too, just as health coaches, that consistency is way better than doing something every once in a while. So, meditating 3 times a week, okay, that's better than 0. But if you only had a certain set period of time, just even 2 minutes a day, then doing it every day is even more important than doing it for 30 minutes, 3 days a week or something like that. And so really just starting slow, being gentle with yourself, having self-compassion for yourself. And so meditation is so different from so many other things in that sometimes right away you might not see something tangible, like you might not see sleep improve right away, although most people do. It might be something very subtle, like you're just not as reactive as you used to be. Maybe you're giving a thought out response in a really difficult situation rather than just reacting. Those come so subtly you might not notice it right away. And so sometimes the way that we think about things, because I work out, you guys work out, obviously, of course, and we have these set kinds of end results and end goals, and that's great. But this is a little bit more intangible, and so it can be hard for folks to get their heads around. And so one of the first things that I do if I'm teaching meditation, just like I did in the Thrive Summit too, is really go over the science of it and help people understand, like, what, you don't have to feel like you had a great meditation for it to have worked. And that's really some of the more important pieces to take away. Like, we don't need to judge every meditation. Whatever it was like, whether all you did was, come back from your thoughts to your breath for 5 minutes, that's okay. And that's a totally new concept. And it certainly was for me, right? Because there's a level of perfectionism, certainly in our world, but definitely in medicine. I mean, there's no room for errors there. Everything has to be exactly the same way every time. And so it took a really long time for me to get that. And so I like to make sure that people are at least having some glimpse of that notion.
I love that you do that. When you said you were a closet, meditator, and then you evolved to this point, now you help people. I thought it was not a closet meditator. I thought I was that person that thought meditation was weird. I thought those people were weird. I was like, ooh, that's just strange. It's like, like woohoo, like out there, right? But until I started learning the science, I listened to the podcast and I started learning the science behind it, like neurons that wire together, fire together, and it creates these different pathways and how important it is. And they were saying, like, even super successful people meditate. So that kind of got my interest. And this was years ago, probably like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So then I realized the importance of just doing it like 2 minutes a day or 3 minutes a day. So having someone like you, I think that's very important, that explains like the science behind it and walk them through, because I think a lot of people don't know, they're scared. And, what are like some tools or tips you give someone to like a beginner meditator?
Yeah, for sure. And that's really where I work with a lot of people. I mean, I definitely get people from, sort of intermediate to advanced as well. But most of the folks that I'm working with are definitely beginners. They're sort of curious about meditation. They may have tried it. They may have felt like they failed at it. And so some of the things to just think about is what meditation is exactly, right? Like, there's so many different connotations for it. And ultimately, at the bare bones definition of it, meditation is just going from activity into silence. That's literally all it is. It's just that simple. And for most of us in most of our lives, we're not used to going into silence, and it can feel a little bit uncomfortable, and that's okay. Because sometimes we try to just run from our feelings. I mean, I do it all the time now because we're conditioned to do more of the things that make us feel good and avoid the things that make us feel bad, even though the things that make us feel bad don't go anywhere. We just keep stuffing them in there. And so, as far as what to do, there's really no right or wrong way to meditate. You only need to do 2 things. You just need to close your eyes and sit down. And the simplest meditation is just noticing your breath. And if you did that for 2, 3, 4 minutes and, got up, you're already meditating. And there are lots of different other ways too. Like, I teach a mantra-based meditation, and mantra, in Sanskrit, it just means mind vehicle. And so it gives our brain something to do, gives our mind something to do while we go into the silence, because we have these monkey minds.
Yes, we do. This is fascinating. One thing that I love, like meeting physicians in the plant-based space, you guys have done extra training because in medical school, oftentimes you have very little to no training on nutrition. But then you're taking it even another step further, and a big part of your practice is meditation. You also teach people Ayurveda, the lifestyle of Ayurveda, which is fascinating to me. I don't fully understand it. I've had glimpses of it in my yoga teacher training, but I'm kind of obsessed with it and am very, very interested in learning more about that. But tell us, how did you work this into some of your Western training? This always amazes me hearing these stories.
Yeah, for sure. And, one thing that I started to realize too is we have some of these studies, and that's great. I'm always trained to look for evidence. I'm always trained to look for like, is this repeatable? What are the side effects, that sort of thing. But, something to think about is Western allopathic medicine, where I trained. I'm a traditional, medical doctor. It's been around for a couple hundred years, and we've made incredible advances, obviously, as you guys know. But the thing is, like, as a whole, we are much sicker than we've ever been. And so what's the disconnect is that we've forgotten about lifestyle. And so let's look at what our ancestors were doing thousands of years ago. They were following something like Ayurveda. And that's just one of the wisdom traditions that we can tap into, but there's so many others, right? And so Ayurveda is at least 5,000 years old, was, passed down from generation to generation. But, there are evidence that it was being practiced about 5,000 years ago, and it's evolved over all of these years. And it is ultimately, the way I think of it, is the original lifestyle medicine. And so it kind of divides us up into, not really even divides us up, it kind of helps us take some language to what we already know intuitively. And so there are mind-body types. And so they're known as doshas. And depending on your dosha, you may or may not need to eat a certain way. You may or may not need a certain amount of sleep. And so we know this already, that, obviously we all need a baseline number of hours of sleep, but there are some people, who need a little bit more, and some people who need a little bit less, some people who need to eat a little bit more frequently, and some who can fast for 12 hours, no problem. And so it really, it kind of goes back to, hey, if you're feeling this way and this is your doshic propensity, maybe you should try this first before you go to something else. And there are 6 different stages of potential actual imbalances before we even see illness or disease or dis-ease in Ayurveda. And so there are 6 different places where we can actually recourse ourselves, recorrect ourselves. And ultimately, Ayurveda is really just about bringing our mind, body, spirits into balance for self-healing.
Is there a test that you take to find that out?
There is, and actually Chopra.com usually has one on their website, and that might be a good place to check it out. I've been meaning to put one on my website too, but yes, absolutely. And I can pop that in to you guys via email as well.
Okay, definitely.
And with the doshas, can you change between doshas with different seasons and different things like that? And can you kind of talk a little bit more about the doshas?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So there are the 3 primary doshas. And by the way, we're not always just, meaning we're not stagnant, we're always fluid, but we have a primary dosha in general. And it's thought to be determined at the time, not even of birth, but of the time our embryos formed. And so it's a combination of the 5 main major elements, right? Earth, water, fire, air, and earth, water, fire, air, vata, pitta, earth. Okay, why am I forgetting the 5? Let's see, space, air, water, fire, and earth. Okay, space, air, water, fire, and earth. So it's really a combination of those 5. And so, like, for me, I'm a pitta. I'm going to guess that you guys are as well, just having to, kind of knowing you a little bit. And, pitta is made up of fire and water. And so we're generally very fiery in nature, and we move a lot. We're very active, and we have a hard time calming down. And so, kaphas can be like really grounded, really, their main sort of propensity is, they're amazing friends. They're always calm. They sleep really well. Sometimes they need more sleep than you or I might need. And sometimes they don't like to move very much. And so they kind of have to know that about themselves so they can make themselves move a little bit more. Like they're perfectly happy curled up reading a book all day. And they really feel at home when it's like a rainy, day outside, and they're just not going to get a lot of they're not going to feel a lot of stress or turbulence, whereas like we might feel a lot of stress and turbulence. And so there are all kinds of different ways to look at it, but we're different combinations of those 5 main elements. And depending on, like I said, when the embryo was formed, then that's really our lifetime dosha or prakriti. Now, of course, there's also vikruti, which is that that's our imbalance. Like, where are we now? And so hardly ever are we always in balance unless we're very much so like really on top of things.
I
And
love
so it
that.
helps to bring things back in.
Yeah, I love the changing and the flowing and how we could actually be one of them or all of them, a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And then there are, lots of different sort of variations and recommendations that are definitely seasonal. And so it's, depending on a certain season, you may want to do something differently. And so some of it is so intuitive, but yet we don't follow it, right? It could be like the dead of winter and we might be in, the Northeast, and yet we're drinking ice water in the restaurant. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, we're basically making all of that worse. Like, we should be drinking hot tea. Same thing if we are, here in Florida right now in the middle of the summer, like I shouldn't be drinking really hot coffee from the Starbucks. And so just really simple things like that to just balance.
It's so fascinating. And literally, I could just keep asking you questions like all day long about this stuff because I love, love, love this. My sister just graduated from Oriental Medicine school. She's becoming a doctor of Oriental Medicine. So I'm in Las Vegas right now for graduation. Yes, thank you. But I remember when she was like early on in her training or a couple of years back, and we were talking, and I was eating a lot of raw foods because I live in Miami. It's hot. It's hot, hot, hot. So I do have like a lot of raw, a lot of cold. But there was something, and I can't remember what it was that made her say something to me, but she was like, you need to eat more cooked foods, more warming foods. And it was all about the chi and the energy and everything, because there's some similarities between Oriental medicine and Ayurveda. So it's fascinating to me. And this is an area that I would love to learn a little bit more about. But for now, we have to like send everyone to you and to my sister, because this is something that I can't speak intelligently on. But it is kind of interesting. So if we're having, like, if someone is like agitated or they're running wild or whatever, there's different lifestyle things that we can do. Like from a plant chick standpoint, we would be say, make sure that you're moving your body, doing some kind of exercise for stress management, meditation, looking at your sleep, staying hydrated. But from an Ayurvedic perspective and lifestyle medicine, like putting all those together, what are some things that you would talk with your clients or your patients about who are like super stressed and they need to have a little bit more grounding and bring some more peace into their life?
Yeah, absolutely. What a great question. So, and you're totally right in how Oriental medicine and Ayurveda are so similar. And what's really crazy is, Oriental medicine developed completely separately around the same time as Ayurveda. They both were evolving around the same time. And yet, because I had to buy like this, it was like a $200 gigantic textbook that basically, one of the, sort of the sages and the rishis who basically studied both in depth and wrote this book on its marva points and acupuncture points. And guess what? They're exactly the same. It's so insane. And the descriptions of them were very, very similar. It's so crazy. And so like every time I want to just get blown away, I open that textbook up and I'm just like, oh my God, how did they know? And so we're so used to thinking of like, this is where my body ends. And that's not it at all. Like, we have this energy body. We have, like you said, chi, we have so much more to us. We have this subtle body to us that we just aren't really talking about. And actually, finally, we are starting to have some studies on it. So my takeaway from some of that is, come to some of this with some open-mindedness and some humility. Like I didn't necessarily come to it with a lot of humility at first, because, I'm like this Western trained doctor, and we're thought, we're taught to just be like, if you can't have evidence for it, you're never going to practice it, that sort of thing. Well, that's flawed thinking to a certain degree, because we've only been studying this stuff for maybe 20 years max. And we have, over 10,000 studies on things like mindfulness and meditation, but we're at the tip of the iceberg. And so to kind of just keep that in mind, like you said, which is, hey, there's a lot more to this that we can dive into. So that's my aside, sorry for that. But yeah, to your question on, what do you do when you've got somebody that's, well, basically like almost everybody that I'm working with right now, who's just super stressed out, they're running around and they're doing too much, they don't have enough time, and they're overwhelmed. And so we really just look at, okay, where are the imbalances happening and where are the priorities? And so first we just start with with their vision, because sometimes they haven't even thought of that. Like they don't even know what they're supposed to feel like. And they shock themselves. They're like, I've never thought about that. And then of course we just work backwards from there, and we look at whole health, and we start to look at, is there grounding? That's a huge part in Ayurveda, which means, are we out in nature? And believe it or not, sometimes people just aren't, right? Like you probably do believe it, but we can really become detached from nature. And that can be one of the major imbalances in our lives, right? And so how are your relationships? That's another important part. If you're in, a toxic relationship or relationships, whether it's at work or at home, unless something shifts there, there's not going to be a vibrancy to you. How's your sleep? If you haven't slept in 6 years and you're still only sleeping for 5 hours a night, no matter how well you eat, you are not going to be as well as you can be. And so we really just look at whole health. And for me, whole health, Ayurveda wise, mind, body, spirit in the context of environment. And so we really start to look at that. And so it's a very individualized work that can be done, but it's important to just start off with intentions. Like, what are my intentions? And then you can work backwards from there. But I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, I love that you can show people life through a different lens. Then you make them aware, because it's all about being aware and being connected to their mind. Can you share with us one of your favorite patient story?
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think of who I want to share with you. So, well, actually, so I do. No, it's all good. It's all good. So I actually did a cohort over the last 6 months, and I've worked with them individually as well as a group of some local school teachers. I just did a pro bono, and I mean, they all have had amazing transformations, but this one in particular had 2 deaths in the family. And this was, a few months before she started working with me, which was like 6 months ago, and just couldn't get out of that, out of the grief there, which is, hey, there's no time limit for grief, of course. And then there was, of course, the stress of being a teacher and then being a mom and everything else on top of that. And so we really just started very, very small. She was having panic attacks. She was having a lot of anxiety, hadn't really been able to tolerate a lot of stuff, and was leaning a lot towards over drinking, which is very, very common. And so it was just a really gentle movement. And there was no, it's important to just like let judgment go by the wayside. And honestly, she was just too anxious to even meditate at that point, which was okay. So we just started doing some grounding breathing exercises and some breath work the first 3 weeks that we were working together. And she started to get better. And we did some journaling as well. And so with journaling and breath work, and these didn't take too much of her time, she got to kind of a closer to a neutral point. And then we worked in some meditation, started to increase the meditation, and then, just individualized coaching too. And she would set different action steps and different goals for herself every week. And of course it was nonlinear growth, but she was having this exponential growth every now and then. And she would plateau. Sometimes she would, go right back to 3 weeks ago, but nevertheless her overall trend was all the way up here. And I just literally finished up with her last week, and she is like this beaming, vibrant. She's so close to that vision that she created for herself. And, she's eating better, she's sleeping better, she's actually exercising, and her anxiety isn't completely gone, but it is so much better. And she's dealing with her grief in a way, because we talked about emotional processing. And so really like becoming aware of it and not stuffing it down. And so we actually, she graduated from my program like last week. And so she is like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, the transformation that's happened for her.
It's inspiring, right? Like I love seeing clients progress and realize their dreams. And it keeps, like Marcy and I talk about this all the time. When Plant Chicks will post things, we're like, this is why we do it, because it's so inspiring. It's beautiful. And one of the things that you said, that you were teaching her a lot of new techniques, a lot of new things that she can do to help ground herself and to grow and to help her realize these dreams. But you said that she had a couple setbacks. And this is something that we see all the time. Like, this is commonplace. You guys all know I'm in recovery. There's a lot of people who relapse. It's literally our neural pathways. Like, we're so used to going a certain direction, and then it's so easy to revert back to that learned behavior, drinking alcohol, eating fried foods, eating a different way, not exercising, sitting down, instead of grounding, going outside, breathing in fresh air, having water instead of having a diet soda or a regular soda. Like, there's so many different learned behaviors, and it's easy to go back, but it's possible to keep trekking forward. And if you do have one step back, it's all right. You get back up and you get back on the road, just the same way, like when a baby is learning to walk or crawl, they stand up or they're crawling and then they like fall over. Or if they stand up, they take a step and then they fall down. They don't just stay down, they get back up and they keep going. And that's one of the things that working with a coach, working with a physician, how we can help hold you accountable and help guide you on this journey. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that description. You're absolutely right too, because no one that I've ever worked with, and including myself, of course, has ever had this like linear march all the way to the top. Like, that just isn't real. That's not, maybe we're robots if we're like that, but that's just not humanly possible, like you said. So I love that. Yeah, keep in mind, setbacks are normal, and it's okay to just get right back up and just keep trucking, exactly like you said.
It's beautiful. So I should have warned you about this, and you don't have to oblige to do this, but would you be willing to guide us through like a meditation or breath work or both? Like, it doesn't have to be long, like maybe a minute or two or however long you want to do it. And for anyone who's watching, we would love for you guys to try this. Or if you're watching it on replay, then maybe you can get a little grounding here.
Yeah, 100%. Totally game. Just checking on my dog, because I hear one of my daughters coming in, and sometimes she'll bark, but she is totally out cold. So we're good. She usually knows when I'm teaching meditation. So just get ready, guys. She might bark. It's like she just knows. She's like, Mom is meditating, I must bark. And so so yeah, let's do this. Let's do a nice meditation. And this is going to be really simple. And what we'll actually do a mantra here. We'll do a universal mantra, and I'll introduce that mantra for you. So really all you have to do here is just close your eyes, get comfortable, let any expectations go, and just follow along. That's really all we're going to do. Okay. So just when you're ready, just sit with some back support so that you're comfortable, feet flat on the ground, and just gently close your eyes, hands on your lap. Let's just take a few deep breaths together. And every time you exhale, just let go of anything that's no longer serving you. Just letting it go. Now just gently bring your attention to your breath at the level of your heart, without trying to alter it in any way, just gently noticing your breath. the in-breath, the pause, the out-breath. Just simply and gently noticing it. And now just silently begin to repeat the following mantra just in your mind. The mantra is so, hum, so on the in-breath, hum on the out-breath. Just effortlessly thinking so on the in-breath, hum on the out-breath. So as you inhale, hum as you exhale. If you find that your mind has wandered, that's okay. Just gently return to so, hum. Just gently releasing the mantra, keeping your eyes closed. Just rest. Just rest in existence. Now I want you to silently repeat these 4 intentions for living a happy, healthy, harmonious life. Just gently drop them into your being as I repeat them. Joyful, energetic body. Loving, compassionate heart. Reflective, alert, peaceful mind. And lightness of being. Now just taking a few deeper breaths, bringing in a sense of gratitude for our many blessings, for taking this time. Taking a few deeper breaths, becoming aware of your body, maybe wiggling your toes. And just when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Namaste.
Namaste.
Oh, that was beautiful.
I feel
How you guys
relaxed.
feel?
I really do. I feel really relaxed.
I feel very relaxed. Your voice is so calming. It's beautiful.
Well, you know, as a teacher, my job is to be the conduit. So I have to be at least authentic and practice the meditation myself regularly with regularity so that I can be the vehicle or the conduit rather than it being from me, from something higher than me.
I love that. Okay, so if someone wants to take your program, what would they need to do?
So right now I have 2 offerings. I do one-on-one. I also have a group offering right now. It's on waiting list because I just closed the enrollment, but it's going to be opening up again. But I'd love to meet them for, to get to know them and them to get to know me. So they can just go to my website, which is optimalwellnessmd.org, and sign up for the newsletter. And that way they can learn of all of the new offerings that I've got going on. But I do often have meditation classes, group classes, mini retreats. I've got many things that are happening most of the time.
And they do not have to be in Florida. You see patients and clients literally around the world, because we have plant chicks from other countries here as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so I'm not going to practice medicine outside the state of Florida. And really, my very small niche DPC practice is closed right now. It's got a waiting list. And so I wouldn't be taking any patients per se, like prescribing medications and things. But this is really more me acting as a certified coach and meditation teacher and Ayurveda teacher.
Wow.
I love it. Yes. All right. Well, thank you for joining us here today. I feel like I need to go take a nap after that. No, that meditation. Everybody needs some Dr. Rashmi in her life.
Oh, real. That was beautiful. Dr. Rashmi, thank you so much for being able to, for creating space and joining us in the tribe and sharing all of your amazing tools and your amazing energy. Thank you. This was beautiful.
It's been my pleasure and just loved and meeting you guys and grateful for this connection. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your meditation with us. And if your plant chicks are watching, please check her out. We'll put all the information below and give her a follow. So thank you again. Have a beautiful day and we'll see you soon. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of
Oh my God,
course.
that was wonderful.
Wait, are we still?